Hello everyone and welcome to the weekly Dartscast. It's Wim here from Holland and it's very cold outside. Here is even snow expected. So I would suggest you just stay in your warm and cozy house, grab a cup of tea and enjoy this episode of the weekly Dartscast, which is the best darts related podcast on this planet. And it's time to meet your co-hosts, Alex Moss and Burton DeWitt.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Weekly Dartscast, sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss and joining me as always it is the dart statistician, Burton DeWitt. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine because, there's absolutely no soccer at all going on. It's making me not be fine. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing good, thank you. Yeah, I was not going to try and mention the football stroke soccer, but of course we now know that football is going to be coming home in a few weeks' time. So looking forward to that. We just thought we'd bring you a quick intro for the show. We've got two guests that we're going to bring you in a moment. First of all, you can hear from the WDF General Secretary and Referee, Nick Rolls. And then we're going to bring you our chat with the asset, the commentator, Paul Nicholson. So enjoy those two chats and we'll be back at the end to say goodbye. I'm pleased to say I'm joined once again by the WDF Secretary General and Referee, Nick Rolls. Thanks for joining us again, Nick. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Alex. It always, in fact, sounds so formal. WDF Secretary General, just Nick Rolls. I always preferred Nick Rolls as referee, but I understand why you have to introduce it like that. I'm good though, thank you, mate. Yourself?
Doing good, thank you. And great to get you back on. We had you back on in February, 6 months on from that. And I know a lot of our listeners, they enjoyed listening to that chat. So good to get you back on and to talk all things WDF. And one of the big talking points relating to the WDF is, of course, the World Masters. When we had you on 6 months ago, there was a deadline to decide if the event would go ahead this year. We now know there won't be a World Masters, unfortunately, this year. It's going to come back in 2024. So can you talk us through how you came to that tough decision to postpone the event this year?
Yeah, my God, that seems a long time ago. Well, it seems a long time ago, February now. I guess it is 6 months ago. I think I've said before, off the back of the pandemic, we always felt we needed to run a World Championships and World Masters, as much as anything, to show that the WDF was alive and kicking. And those two tournaments both went really well. We learned loads from it, especially for myself, sort of being in that position for the first time. Obviously, I've been the referee, so I've been at the tournaments, but not behind the scenes, so to speak. Definitely some learnings, and the biggest learning that I took, and probably the team that I work with took, was that when you lurch from 1 year to the next, it's just never ending, and you just can't do it. You have to put in place long-term plans. And I said this before, I think one-year deals are all very well and good, but literally on the day you finish that tournament, everyone goes, okay, so what are we doing next year? And the whole circle starts again. So there's that part to it from our own perspective of, you're always under pressure, but also giving our member countries and the players clarity, I guess is the word to use, over, multi-year deals, for want of a better phrase, a bit like we've done at Lakeside. That gives ourselves the chance to plan, and it gives the member countries the chance to plan, and it gives the players the chance to plan. So everyone's got the chance to put in their things in their diary for months ahead and for years to come, for that matter. So I guess to answer the question, we'd be hopeful of the Masters returning in 2024. And we're doing all that we can to meet our own criteria to make that happen. But we simply are not going to lurch from 1 year to the next, just putting things on because we can, if that makes sense. That may sound a bit harsh, but I don't want it to. And I think, look, I'm sure we're going to come on to speak about the World Championships in a minute. I think one of the things that's proven by having a 3-year deal at Lakeside is the fact that we've been able to plan and put things in place and move steadily rather than leaping from one fire and into another, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that is fair enough. And yeah, we will come on to the World Championships in a moment. Just another one though on the World Masters, and on this show we've been discussing possible slots in the calendar for 2024. Yeah. My suggestion was to have it in June, with Lakeside being in December. You've got that nice even split across the calendar. Yeah. So is there any indication yet on when the World Masters could be held next year?
Look, I'm with you, Alex. If at the end of the day you had the choice of wherever you can put it, and it doesn't always come down to that, because if you find a venue, they may have other taking up some of their calendar space. But I agree with you. I'd like a May or a June, to be fair, for exactly the reasons you've said, which is it splits the calendar up. And it also then gives us the chance as the WDF to sort of dedicate time to the Masters and then dedicate time to Lakeside rather than having on one on top of the other. So I'm with you, but sometimes the best laid plans and all that thing don't come to fruition. But let's keep our fingers crossed that it can.
Yeah, let's hope so. Well, one event we are going to see this year is the World Championship, and we spoke about it last time, that new time slot of early December at Lakeside, only 4 months away now. So how is the preparation going for the long-awaited second World Championship from the WDF?
4 months, wow. I just mentioned about planning ahead, actually, and one of our plans for Lakeside was to map out where we wanted ticket sales to be at various stages through 2023. So you'll remember that we put the tickets on sale. I remember the 31st of March 2023 was the day they went on sale. And look, it's fair to say that the sales have exceeded our expectations. And the biggest statement I can make is that the fact that we've already sold more tickets than we sold for the whole of the 2022 Lakeside. So with 4 months to go, we're more than confident of at least doubling the sales. I mean, fingers crossed that they continue as they're going at this moment in time, because I think that's quite a big statement to make. So I guess if I'm going to take the liberty of plugging things, what I would say that there's another batch of tickets went on sale yesterday. The guys were telling me, and so if you want to nab the seats where you want to sit at Lakeside, then the advice has to be get online now and book those tickets. So look, shameless plugging, but I'm not going to step back from that.
Yeah, great news about the tickets. Yeah, they've been on sale for a few months now. We hear the sales are going better than last year, and you just confirmed it there as well. So aside from the tickets, is there any news on a TV deal, a prize fund for the World Championship yet?
Two really good questions, Alex. Look, prize money wise, actually, let me do the TV bit first. Look, that remains an area that we're working on. There's only one way to say it. There's nothing signed and sealed at this point. What do they say? Talks are ongoing. I think we're in the transfer window, aren't we, in the football season? So that's what they tend to say. And talks are ongoing. So I'll use that phrase if that's all right. And one thing I've learned is that literally with these things, talks can go right down to the wire, because we want to get the best deal for us. TV companies want the best deal for them. Production companies want the best deal. So I think that one is a bit of a watch this space. With the prize fund, look, lots of ideas being bandied around. What we've decided is that, as you know, the World Cup's coming around in Denmark in September, and we are going to make the announcement of what the prize fund will be and when the draw will be made. And I think there's probably one or two other little bits that aren't coming to mind just at this moment in time that need to be announced. But we're going to make that as a part of there's a general meeting at ahead of every Europe Cup or World Cup that the WDF hold. And the general meeting this year is on Monday, the 25th of September. So we're going to make the announcements as a part of that general meeting, so as our member countries are the first to hear that information. But we'll be ready to press the button as it goes live to the world, so to speak, at exactly the same time. So preparations underway. Nothing finalised yet. Monday the 25th of September. Stick the date in your diary.
We'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that. And another thing that we spoke about last time we had you on was whether players who qualified for Lakeside and the PDC World Championship could play in both the events. You said that the WDF stance was yes, the ball was in the PDC's court. Since we spoke, we've seen Bo Greaves, the reigning WDF Women's Champion. She's won the Women's World Matchplay on the PDC side. That's qualified her for Rally Pally. It'd be a shame for her to choose between the two events. So is there an update from the PDC on what their stance is?
Look, our stance remains the same. Really important that we keep that. The players that qualify for Lakeside and the PDC's Worlds can play in both as far as we're concerned. Look, there's no getting away from the fact that in previous years that hasn't been the case for the men. So we haven't got confirmation on that, or indeed on the ladies. But we have got a meeting in the diary with Matt for the end of the month, and we'll take it from there. And as soon as we know the answer to that one, with absolute, you keep using this word, clarity. With absolute clarity is when we'll be announcing it, because obviously you're absolutely right. We don't want to lose the ladies in particular. particular, we don't want to lose any of the players, but the ladies in particular, because that is their World Championships as far as the WDF are concerned. But if that does come about, or indeed the men's situation changes, that is likely to open up some more spaces for Lakeside. As you'll be well aware, I think there's 2 or 3 players that I can think of that are in the mix for places in the PDC world. So we'll have to have that conversation with Matt and then wait for confirmation of which players do or don't qualify, if indeed that rule comes into place, and go from there.
We're with you on the same stance there. We'd love to see players playing in both and not have to choose. And just one last one on Lakeside, a name synonymous with Lakeside, the late Bob Potter, who sadly passed away in April. Just wanted to give you the chance to maybe say a few words on what it was like working with Bob and his venue over the years.
Well, I suppose it's a privilege, I guess, of going to Bob's funeral, and it was synonymous to his life, I guess, in so much as there were a number of people that have appeared at the Lakeside that came and did a little tribute to Bob there. And he was eccentric's probably a bit strong, but I'd never known a guy, especially at his age. So what did I start in 2005? So I think Bob passed away when he was 94. So we're talking 18 years. So even then, he was like in his late 70s, going into his 80s, and he'd be the last one going to bed at 2, 3 in the morning or whatever. And then as you come down for breakfast at 7 or 8 in the morning, which sometimes we did, not very often to be fair, I haven't gone to bed that late, but you get my meaning there. People would say, he'd be there, he'd be wandering through the restaurant, making sure everyone was all right, etc., etc. So that was Bob. He was a workaholic. And some of the tales that we were told at his funeral were just really reiterated that. And look, we've already started talking about how we're going to honour the great man at Lakeside when we get there in December. No plans as of yet, but definitely right at the top of our agenda to make sure that we pay tribute to the guy he put darts on the map with regards to the Lakeside, didn't he? So only right that we do that.
Definitely. And away from the World Championship, the Lakeside, the Masters, let's have a look ahead to events a little closer in the diary. The next one that we've got is next week, the Australian Darts Open. It's a platinum event on the WDF calendar. This year I believe there's going to be more coverage as well through the Darts Australia website, which is good.
Yeah, indeed. Look, really excited to have the Aussie Open back again, their second edition, for want of a better phrase, in this format. Last year was a big success. I know that Richard and Marco and Anthony are down there in Australia already. I think I saw on Facebook earlier that they were working really hard on some great big field, or looking out on the plains in Australia or wherever it was. I can't remember where it was, but they didn't appear to be working too hard to me. But I know that they're looking forward to it. It's a great tournament. From what I hear, it's different. It's something that the WDF were open to last year, into introducing something new into the WDF. The door is always open to new ideas, and if any other countries want to do something similar or want to do something that's a bit new, of course we want to listen to that. It would be a boring world if every single tournament was just run in the same way. I think the only thing that we really stipulate is that there has to be a qualifying criteria. We don't do invitational tournaments. I don't think that that's the right way to go. We want players to qualify, however that may be, and hopefully they can then go and reap the rewards of having qualified.
We're looking forward to following it again. Unfortunately, though, we've got to mention that there is a few players that did turn down the invites to go to Australia, including a player that we've already mentioned, Bo Greaves. Can you understand their reasons for not going? Some of them, of course, is going to be the financial cost of the trip going to Australia.
Exactly that. I think that's true. I must confess, with Bose, I think it was she'd been there. She had a lot of tournaments already under her belt and was going off to the match play, etc., that sort of thing. So hers was just a personal decision. I think you've hit the nail on the head, Alex. I think, and that's whilst it's great, and Australia are fantastic, to be fair, it's worth it. It has to be mentioned that they do put some funds towards getting players from certainly from Europe, but also from other countries to the Australian Open. So it's not as though every player's having to play for all of their funds, but it's still, there is some amounts to pay. And also, in the WDF side and of darts, players got to take time off work, and going down there for 1 week, is that if I was going to Australia, I'd want to be going for 2, maybe 3 weeks to make it worth my while. So I think those things come into consideration. It's also actually worth mentioning, Alex, that you may have seen the news on Facebook and over the last 24 hours that one of the young ladies isn't going to the Netherlands for another reason, and I think it's a great chance to say congratulations to Aletta Vaya and to Gilbert on the great news that Aletta is pregnant, and that's the reason that she's not going to Australia. So congratulations to those two.
Yeah, definitely. I did miss that, but yeah, echoing that, congratulations to them. And one event where there's not going to be short of entries is the WDF World Cup back next month. After a 4-year absence, I think I saw on the website 53 nations is going to be the biggest in the event's history. So how much are you looking forward to the World Cup? And as it is in Denmark, I'm guessing there is going to be a stream for us to watch some of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So over 50 countries has blown us away. I think we had over 50 in Romania, and wondered, having coming back from a pandemic, whether there was going to be that much interest. Well, my God, that really has shown that there is still a massive appetite for the tournament. I've been lucky enough to go to Turkey, Japan and Romania. I should get them in the right order. It's a tournament like no other. I mean, we class ourselves, there's 4 of us are what we call the floor referees, and we look after the games that take place on the floor. Obviously, that's why we're floor referees. And it's hard work, but equally so rewarding. With people that you haven't seen for a long time, you make new friends, and everybody gets on with everybody. But with that will to win as well, it is a fantastic tournament. While you're on the subject, I think I wouldn't mind calling out. There's one guy that I really love to call out, and that's a guy called Arjen de Waal, who is the tournament director for the World Cup. For those people that don't know Arjen, he also has a big hand in putting together the schedule for the Dutch Open. So for some obscure reason, he's a madman that just likes throwing himself into these sorts of tournaments and saying, well, I'll schedule that for you. And we had a call the other night where he put his schedule on the screen. My God, if ever you've done a Sudoku, this trumps that. It's just incredible. It makes it all work, come together. And how he does it, I'm not quite sure, but it'll all, God forbid I say this, it'll all go like clockwork. It'll be a fantastic tournament, and can't wait. Literally can't wait.
Good man. And yeah, we like to give a shout out to the unsung heroes in darts. So great to give him a mention. And sticking with events that are going on, events that are to come as well, we've got some listener questions. We always try and get some of them in. We've got one from Asian Darts, who said 2 parts to this one, really, asking what happened to South Korea. No participation in the World Cup, and seems there won't be a Korean Open this year. Any plans for South Korea? And on the flip side, great to see that events in Malaysia have come back. They're coming back, I think, in October. First events for the WDF 4 years ago.
Yeah, really good question. South Korea is interesting because South Korea have actually got the World Cup for 2025. I just can't think what year we're in. So they are booked in for 2025. So representatives from South Korea will be coming across to Denmark. Again, I mentioned the general meeting where all the countries get together before the World Cup actually starts on the Tuesday. We get together on the Monday to discuss things and talk about rule changes and talk about future World Cups, Europe Cups, America Cups, and all of that sort of thing. So South Korea are definitely coming to that meeting. Funnily enough, I've actually got a call with the gentleman that runs South Korea Darts, a guy called Na, tomorrow to talk about who's coming over and what's expected, for what the country's going to want from there. And it's an interesting question about South Korea because, a bit like yourself, I've been expecting them to come back onto the table. I don't know the reason for that at this point in time, but it's certainly something that I want to speak to Nar about. And the World Cup is actually going to give us that opportunity as well, certainly for myself, to, since I've joined the WDF, I've spoken to a lot of people, but I haven't actually. Well, some of them I have met and don't remember meeting, and the others I'm going to meet for the first time. So that's going to be great for me. Answering the second part of the question, Alex, you're absolutely right. Malaysia and I think it's called the Johor Open, if I'm not mistaken. Two more tournaments off the back of, we just had this weekend the Bud Brick Memorial and the Japan Open in Japan, obviously. So good to see that Asia are coming back onto the table. And listen, there's a bit of a story behind the one in Malaysia as well, because I was speaking to a couple of people yesterday, and they're telling me that obviously you're aware that we've got 3 spaces open for Lakeside 2023. A certain Mr. Paul Lim isn't far off of qualifying, and if he were to go to Malaysia and do well in both the Malaysian and the Johor, if he picked up the points there, he could push himself into a Lakeside spot. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
That would be incredible. Yeah, we've got our fingers crossed for that. Definitely. Come on, Paul, get yourself to Malaysia. We want to see you there.
You'll know this better than me, Alex. My dates and times and knowledge. What year was it that he was at? Didn't he do a 9-dart at Lakeside? No, that bit I do know. I'm joking. But what year was it? I can't remember. I'm awful with dates.
I want to say 1990 would be my guess, but I would have to double check that one. Our listeners will get in touch if we've got it wrong.
Yeah. Somebody will tell us that we're right or we're wrong. But to see the man who hit a 9-darter at Lakeside back on the great stage would be phenomenal. So you're talking about tournaments. There's a whole raft of tournaments still coming up, and at the moment, as you said, we've got 3 spaces. Or as I said, we've got 3 spaces open for people to qualify for Lakeside, and we've still got loads of tournaments. Australia, New Zealand, and there's, I think, double headers. I'm just trying to go through the calendar in my head. There's Catalonia, Finland, Latvia. There's another double header in Belgium. Of course, we've got the British Masters in the middle of September in England. So lots of opportunities. And then there's another story that we were talking about. Leonard Gates is not far off of being one of those. He could force himself into one of those 3 slots. And I think they've got the Which City, which is a silver tournament in America. So still loads to play for in 2023, even if it is just for 3 spaces, or maybe not.
We shall see. Well, touching on the calendar, as you say, there's lots of events coming up. Unfortunately, we have seen a few events cancelled, though, in Northern Ireland and Italy. I mean, is this something that the WDF are actively working on with those member countries to get those events back on the calendar next year?
100%. I mean, I've spoken to, had a good conversation with our friends in Northern Ireland. There's no point getting away from it. It's difficult at the moment, to get some tournaments on, and that's unfortunately what's happened in Northern Ireland this year. So the funding for the tournament, that they unfortunately suffered a bit of a loss in 2022 and literally couldn't afford to take that risk in 2023. So we've had a good conversation around the possibilities for 2024. They're desperate to do 2 silver tournaments, but equally sometimes you have to cut your cloth to meet the funds that you've got. And from Ireland's point of view, from Northern Ireland's point of view, that's something that we have had a small discussion about. I'm going to meet with Gareth Chambers, and I know Neil Duff's very keen as well to get Northern Ireland back onto the agenda for 2024. So we'll have a chat, I'm sure, over a glass of lemonade or something in Denmark, and find out the possibilities there. Italy's was slightly different. Italy's was, from my understanding, is they were told that their venue was going to undergo refurbishment, and that the funding came along and meant that they literally didn't have a venue to put their tournament on in 2023. So they are more than confident of coming back in 2024. And look, while we're talking about the funding, that England are one of those that this year, I know how hard Tommy and the guys have been working to try and get tournaments on in England, without success perhaps this year. But I've got an inkling that there's some good news coming for 2024 from there. So again, watch this space. I honestly, Alex, don't know any more than that, but I believe there's some good news coming for 2024. So I hope that for England's point of view, because they are a major player within the WDF and within darts, and getting them back on the calendar would be fantastic.
Definitely. Well, 2 more before we let you go, and before we do turn the page over to 2024. The last time that we spoke, you said about wanting to get that stability on the WDF calendar, and 2024 looks like it could be the year to do that with the World Masters coming back, the World Championship is in place for next year, but we've got a few months left of 2023. So what are the WDF's main goals?
Main goals for 23, definitely Lakeside. We want to nail Lakeside, make sure it runs as smoothly. I think if you go back to April 2022 and meet up with the players or speak to any of the players, I think I'm marking my own homework here, I guess, but we put a lot of effort into making sure that the players felt special or looked after. We wanted to do the right things for them. We gave them all the information in advance. We told them when they were going to get paid, and they got paid by that date, etc., etc. So we want to replicate that. We've got a couple of ideas about making it better. We've, as I keep saying, we've had the time to plan a little bit. So hopefully we can put into place a couple of new ideas. Nothing radical, but just to make it a bit of a better experience, etc. So I think Lakeside is the main one. And for me personally, the World Cup is a massive window of opportunity, if you want to call it that, just to meet some of the countries, talk through, how do they feel the WDF's going? Because for as much as we're the ones that sit in I would say an ivory tower, but if you saw the room I'm sitting in at the moment, I wouldn't call it that. But people think we sit in ivory towers and make decisions, but not the case at all. But it is the member countries that we need to make sure that we're keeping or trying to help to keep them afloat as well, if you know what I mean, so that they've got things that they can play for, which is why the World Masters is really important in my eyes, because it's the tournament where they get the opportunity to see their players play, but also to put forward players to play in that tournament, if that makes sense. So I've got to say Lakeside for the rest of this year, but also just making the plans for 2024.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And lastly, we'll give you the floor to finish off. For any of our listeners, they might be playing themselves on the WDF circuit, or just like us following the tour as fans. What is your message to them as we head into these final months of 2023 and Lakeside at the end of it?
Wow. What would I say? I guess I said it right at the start. If I remember rightly back to February, I said that 2023 was a transitional year and it's going to be difficult, it's going to be hard. There were going to be moments where people, including ourselves, would think, oh my God, is this going in the right direction? I really feel the whole Lakeside thing, and as I say, that we've already taken sold the number of tickets we sold in 2022, gives me real confidence that we're going to go forward successfully. Yes, we want to get the Masters on, but also if you look at just look at the last weekend, Belgium Open and the Antwerp Open, over 400 men and over 90 women played in that tournament. So I think we have to be a little bit careful that where we sit in England, sometimes there are some negative comments about what's happening in the WDF. But that tells me that we're still in a relatively good place. Never count your chickens, but there are people that want to play in open tournaments around Europe, around the world, and Australia and New Zealand and USA have really come to the fore with that in 2023. And they're going to reap the benefits because their players are going to be playing at the World Championships in December and then again in 2024. So I really do think we're on the right path. Lakeside's going to be a massive success. There you go. I'll put it out there. And on to 2024. So get yourself to those tournaments if you've got the opportunity. And of course, get onto the website and book some tickets for Lakeside.
Good times ahead. Well, Nick, it's always a pleasure to get you on the show. We know you're a busy man, so appreciate you taking out the time, and we wish you all the best with the World Cup, Lakeside, and everything else just to come in 2023.
It's a good man that you are. And listen, I go back to that sunshine in Bolton. I can't believe I'm sitting here in Hampshire and it's raining, and you're sitting in Bolton and it's sunny. That doesn't normally happen. So some things must be on the upright.
Yeah, you win some and you lose some. That's what I say.
Take care, Alex. Thank you.
140.
I'm joined today by the former Players Champion, Paul Nicholson. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm very well, Burton. It's nice to hear your voice. It's been a while.
Yes, likewise. Lots to discuss with you. First of all, we've just wrapped up Champions Week in the Modus League, where 16-year-old Luke Littler retained his title. You were there in Portsmouth calling it from the commentary box. How special of a talent is Luke?
He is quite the talent when you consider how young he is and how much experience he already has at that age. everybody's getting excited about this young man, and rightly so. I think there's going to be a lot of talk about Luke in the next few months because of what he's done this year and what he's done the previous 2 seasons. I don't think that should be forgotten, because he did win a gold ranking event in the WDF at the age of 14, but he's been to Lakeside. It looks like he's going to Alexandra Palace at the end of the year as well, and he has the decision to take a tour card as well if indeed the development tour stuff over the next couple of weeks goes his way, which it looks like it probably should. So big times ahead for him. I'm just excited that he's got so many great opportunities, and now there's going to be a lot of press about him, and it's how he and his team handle that which will stipulate just how successful he could possibly be.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, Paul. Sticking with Luke, we've got the final weekend of the development tour coming up next week. As you mentioned there, Luke currently in a spot for Ali Pali and a tour card. If he were to get a tour card, from your point of view, if he was asking for advice, would you be saying go for it? We know the ability that he's got, or do you feel it might just be a bit too soon?
You know what? This has been the question of the week already, and by the time we're recording this, it's only Tuesday. And people are looking at the calendar and thinking it looks like he's going to be safe for Alexandra Palace. And having a 16-year-old kid at Ali Pali at Christmas, that is a headline in itself. But as far as the tour card's concerned, I've spoken to people today about it, and I'm 50-50 at the minute. I get the feeling that over the next couple of months, when this decision will be made, there will be a lot of toing and froing from Luke, his family, his management, his sponsors. There will be people who will want him to go all guns blazing into the tour. But there are reasons to hold back. But then there are reasons for him not to hold back as well. So it'll be interesting to see what conclusion they come to. But with his talent the way it is and his ceiling of performance where it can be, then there's going to be a lot of people saying strike while they're in hot, young man, because you can make a lot of money and make a very big impact in a very short space of time.
We'll see about that, but another newcomer to the world of darts is, of course, the Modus League. You've been involved in the Modus Super Series for a while now, as we've seen it evolve from just 3 years ago during the pandemic being played online in people's homes to then being played in a small room and now being held on a stage with a crowd every Saturday. What do you think is the next step in the evolution of the Modus Super Series?
That's a really interesting question, Burton, because I've been asking myself that same question and speaking about that with our producers and a lot of the backstage talent who put the things on the air. I think what they've done in the last 6 months, which has been very clever, is trying to attract more players from countries like Germany, more from the Netherlands, more from Belgium. We've even had a couple of players from Luxembourg, which I think was very encouraging. So that part of Europe is starting to throw more players our way, and we're being more susceptible to giving them a chance. So if someone thinks they're good enough and they get this opportunity, then the vehicle is there for you to make a lot of money and to give yourself that little platform moving forward, which has been used really well by the likes of Raymond Smith from Australia and by Luke Littler in the last couple of series, not to mention Conan Whitehead, the first champion. But I think as far as the evolution is concerned, I think it will be a slower evolution from here on out, because when we started at home, we all just wanted to play darts and we wanted to give somebody else something to watch. And it served that purpose. And when you saw David Evans and Richie Edhouse use the success from the at-home stuff to get their tour cards, we all thought that this was a launch platform for people to go on and do greater things, and it has served that purpose. But it's taken on a different identity now. What I also think is that people are making different choices now when it comes to the Modus Super Series, whereas it was seen as a launching platform for certain people to go and do other things, like going to the PDC circuit. We saw what it did for Dave Evans and for Richie Edhouse in the very start of it when we played from home. But now there are people who are saying, I can't fully commit to the PDC circuit as a top pro, but what I can commit to is playing in 4 different series a year on top of playing seniors and maybe doing some other independent stuff as well. I mean, you look at someone like Robert Thornton, the current World Seniors champion, he's probably got a better balance of darts now at his age, and it gives him more time with his family in Scotland. He's just one example. I mean, he could indeed go back to Q School in January and try and get his privileges back, and that wouldn't be a surprise. But now it's not a surprise if he wasn't to do that because of the Modus Super Series and the seniors. So there are options out there for players depending on what they actually want to do. But I think the evolution of this product going forward is going to be slower, and they're going to be focusing more on the Far East. They're going to be focusing heavily on North America, I believe, to give other people around the world the opportunity to do what Raymond Smith did in Series 2, which was change the game.
Yeah, definitely. And you talk about the view of the players towards the Modus Super Series. I'm interested to get your thoughts on the views of the fans as well, because I tuned in for the finals on Saturday night and quite enjoyed it as well, apart from the long breaks between some of the games. But I can see that the perception of the Modus League is something that has changed. At the start, a lot of the people were wary about it being put on just for the bookmakers, but now it's attracted an audience that are watching purely to enjoy the darts, and players are queuing up to play in it, including, of course, our friend Jamie Robinson. So have you noticed that shift in how it's being viewed by the fans as well?
I wondered how long it would be before you mentioned Jamie. Do you want to give Vengeance Simeonidis a bit of a shout as well?
I forgot how to spell his surname. That's why I forgot to put him in.
As far as the players are concerned, I think their attitude towards it has changed first and foremost because they see it as a great way of making money and a great way to enhance their form. There's no substitute for match practice. Now, Chris Mason says all the time that the exposure to playing under lights in front of cameras, doing it this way, is almost fast-tracking the experience that players had in the previous generation, which I think is genius. I think that has given people like Luke Littler and some others the opportunity to feel comfortable in that environment quicker. It's the same as playing poker online. People were playing hands over 3 months, and it would take old school pros at tables years to get that experience. So that's one. With the fans, we do have our hardcore Modus Super Series fans, and even some people who turn up in T-shirts saying that's Modus, baby, on a Saturday night. I mean, it does have its own niche following. But here's the biggest thing. There are certain players who come along and attract more fans than others. We were flabbergasted on Saturday night by the YouTube figures, because we usually get something along the lines of, 300, 400, 500 during the day when we've got a Group A scenario. A little bit more than that on Thursdays and Friday nights, but when it comes to Saturday, you get a few more. When we were live for the finals on Saturday night with Littler and all the others, we were over 4,000 live, and we were getting more than Live Golf were getting live. And I thought to myself, this has got quite the following then. And things have changed, whether it was the Luke Littler effect, whether it was anybody else, but we got big numbers, and that has been noticed.
Moving on, we know you're involved in lots of different darts events as a commentator. Last time we had you on, in fact, was during Lakeside in April 2022. You spoke to Alex at that time about your coaching role within the JDC. How is that still going, or how's that been going since we last chatted with you?
I have done a bit of private coaching with some clients. It was well documented. Luke Humphreys came out and said that I helped him a little bit before he started to really climb up the rankings. I still speak with Luke. We don't actually have a relationship in a coaching sense, but I always look after his best interests, giving him tips and tricks whenever he needs them. But I get a really big kick out of helping other people. And that's one of the reasons why people come to me. They always ask me for help. And if it's in a structured environment where it's safe to do a structured coaching session, I can still do that. I haven't done a great deal recently because the venue that I was using over the summer has chosen not to open during the day. So I'll go back to it in the autumn. So I've had a bit of a break from coaching, which has been quite nice just to spend a bit of time on the golf course and things like that. But I really do get a kick from helping people move forward. And without naming names, because everybody who works in the coaching industry, they don't want to name the name of their clients. But I've spoken to an amateur player recently, and what I sent them away to do, they came back to me within a few days and said, I've just won my league singles through some of the tricks and some of the structure that you gave me. And I get more of a kick out of that than hitting a double 16 myself. It's a strange feeling now that it happens, but I think there's going to be more people like me doing things like this moving forward, because coaching is in its infancy and people are only just starting to believe in it the way they should. I think what the JDC started with their qualification was very important, but in order for that to really mushroom, you need people who believe in the coaching platform, and for it to get better, you need people like me. You need people who have signed up to that JDC course, and this is going to have to be a worldwide change, and it will be, but it will take time.
Glad to hear that's going well. And Burton mentioned about the Lakeside, April 2022, the first WDF World Championship. That event returns in December of this year, 2023. So it's been a long wait between the events. We've recently seen as well the World Masters postponed for this year. So how do you assess things with the WDF at the moment?
It's interesting, isn't it? I think it's very hard to judge what's happening in the WDF without actually being in the room where some of these discussions are being made. I think what they've got is a product that has got a very, very fine reach. You think about what's just happened over the weekend in Japan with the Bud Brick Memorial, and you see Yuki Sakaguchi winning that, and you see some other Japanese male talents coming through. That's encouraging. And then you see that there are plenty of Australian WDF events still going because it's still strong down there. I think when you see events not going ahead, like the World Masters, that automatically puts the fan on the back foot and the skeptics on the front foot. But I think what we need to understand is that it's a very competitive market. You've got the Modus Super Series, you've got the PDC, you've got all of their different platforms with the Challenge Tour, Development Tour. And ultimately what the WDF are trying to do is facilitate an amateur product worldwide. And it's not even that big an operation. They're having to rely on affiliates worldwide, and it's not an easy job that they have. But what we do have in December is a World Championship that is going to be littered with sharp talent. And if you think about how good the tournament was when Neil Duff won, that was dramatic. It was great to watch. And we want more tournaments like that, ultimately, to watch on whatever network they can find to broadcast it on. I mean, just imagine what's possible in early December. There's loads of people who will think that Andy Barton's should win it. And then you've got loads of other people who have had superb seasons. I think you could have a great tournament, and it's what they need to almost refresh what they want to do. I think what the WDF need is television backing for a good period of time, be it 2 or 3 years. They need some good sponsors so they can have guaranteed prize money. And I think they need some momentum as well, whether you believe in momentum or not. But I believe that that's what they need moving forward. And if they get that, they could have a really great product for the next few seasons.
Now, earlier today, Alex spoke with Nick Rolls, and an interesting scenario is whether the PDC will allow players who play at Lakeside to play at Alley Pally. Nick told Alex that as far as the WDF is concerned, they're fine with it, but the ball's in the PDC court. The big name that obviously this affects would be Bo Greaves, the reigning women's world champion and current women's world matchplay champion, the PDC. If the PDC do, whether she plays obviously now in the PDC's court, but what's your take on it?
I think when you talk about Bo Greaves, I don't really think it harms the PDC at all if she plays in the Women's World Championship. She could be a 2-time current Women's World Champion going into the PDC Worlds. I don't see any harm in that at all. I think it's great publicity, so it doesn't harm anybody, in my opinion. But I can see where the PDC would maybe have their nose out of joint if it was, I don't know, take someone who might qualify for Alexandra Palace and then qualify for Lakeside. So the worst case scenario is that you have someone who has won Lakeside and then goes on to play in the PDC Worlds. And I just don't think that fits well. It's different, I think, with the Ladies' Championship because they have a lot less tournaments over the course of the year. And the Ladies' World Championship has always been seen as a different one to Ali Pali. You've seen, Lisa Ashton's gone there and Mikuru Suzuki's gone there. That kind of, it's never been a problem. But historically, there's always been this, you are going to play at Lakeside or at the PDC Worlds. Whether that changes or not is entirely up to Matt Porter and his team, and they will take everything under consideration. But me personally, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I think you've got to make a choice. Do you want to put your eggs in the Lakeside basket or do you want to go for Ali Pali? And there are going to be people out there who will qualify for both, and it's entirely up to them just how much they want to go for it. And I'll be interested to see what happens.
Yeah, we should mention as well, we were chatting with Nick, there is a meeting lined up with the PDC at the end of this month, so we will know one way or another what the PDC's stance is on that. And speaking of Bo Greaves, we spoke about her, we spoke about Luke Littler, but Bo Greaves right up there alongside Luke as one of the brightest young prospects in darts at the moment. She's dominated the Women's Series, she's won the Women's World Matchplay as well. What do you think's next for her? What events would you like to see Bo enter for her next step in her progression?
Well, this is a really interesting time for Bo, wasn't it? Because everything she enters, she wins. And her record in Women's Series darts over the last 12 months is frightening. And when you consider just before she started to dominate, we had a real two-person cabal of Sherrick and Ashton just hoovering up ranking points and money. But now, you look at how much Mikuru Suzuki's improved, and she's got nowhere near what Bo Greaves has done. I like the fact that the game is starting to thrive. You look a little bit further down the order of merit, you've got the likes of Robin Byrne coming through and Nolan van Leuven. It's just a lot more talent that's reaching a better level. But Greaves is so far ahead of everybody else. It's quite frightening. But as far as her progression is concerned, I think she's taken it at a nice pace. I think going all guns blazing into things like Challenge Tours, Modus Super Series, and playing a lot of darts. I'm not necessarily a fan of her doing that, and I think she's doing it right. So defending her World Championship, definitely. Playing at the Grand Slam, absolutely. That is a really nice window of opportunity for her to improve even more against some construed tougher opponent. And playing at Ali Pali again to see if she can join the club of one that has won a match as a lady at the World Championship at Ali Pali. That would be interesting to see if she could do that this year. So I think what she's already got guaranteed is enough to test her again. Anything beyond that, I think it will just be her keeping sharp for those challenges at the end of 2023.
Well, speaking of the match play, of course, Bo Greaves winning her first Women's World Matchplay, Nathan Aspinall also winning in Blackpool. Alex remembers that you complimented us on the chat that he had with Nathan around 18 months ago at the start of his comeback from injury. And now look at where he is now. 2 major finals last year, and now the World Matchplay title a little under 2 weeks ago now. How impressed have you been with Nathan's comeback from injury?
It's been very nice to see, because everybody loves Nathan. You speak to all of the staff at events, people backstage, security, commentators, everybody loves him. And we were genuinely scared for him when his career was on the line. The fact that he's come back and arguably better than ever, I think it's fantastic for the game, because he's box office to watch. He's got a new ceiling of performance, I think. And what's frightening is that the darts that are getting slimmer are giving him incremental improvements again, which means his ceiling could possibly rise. I think he's a superstar. I absolutely love him. He's a great person to be around. He gets on with all of the players, and he makes the players feel better in the practice room as well. He's just one of those positive influences that he doesn't seem to be a positivity hoover. He doesn't take it away from people. He actually spreads it out to other people, which is one of the best things about him. And it'll be really interesting to see where he goes from here as a match play champion. I don't necessarily think there's more pressure on him now because he's done that. I think this is just a continuation of his legacy. And now we can look to do what the likes of Peter Wright and Gerwyn Price have done in trying to add to that legacy by winning other tournaments. And that is way more likely than it was before Blackpool.
Yeah, Nathan was definitely a popular winner of the match play. Well, let's touch on your darts as well, because we saw you play on the Modus League in October last year. You said that you're going to have one more crack at Q School. We didn't see you there this year. So is the plan still to have one more go at Q School, or have your plans for your own playing career changed?
Do you know what, Alex? At the minute, I just don't know. The problem I've got at the minute is that I'm in such demand with the media that I haven't had a holiday in 3.5 years. Now, that's before COVID. So you think about what I did with the Super Series through its development, the testing before it even went to air. I've started doing work with the PDC for Players Championships and Euro Tours have continued. And then there's, Minehead trips, and trying to balance all of that with trying to find a way to come back as a player. It's been very difficult. I'm not going to lie. I get asked about it most weeks. I do throw when I'm at home, and I still need to work with my sponsors Winmore about getting the right equipment in my hand, because let's face it, I don't have the time to put in that some players have got. Because if I'm doing a Modus week, I'm working 60, 70 hours in that week, and then I get home on a Sunday, and that for me is a day where I just have to recharge my batteries. I'm never going to say it's all over just like that, because I can still throw a dart, and I still enjoy throwing a dart. But as for me coming back as a professional or someone who is competitive, that's something that I am deeply thinking about at the minute. And my immediate journey, I'm not sure what it is.
So let's get back to you and your work with the guys at Sporting Life. Mainly been written content so far, but we did see you during the match play as you ventured out onto the pier in Blackpool to try your hand at some of the darts games there. Just how much money did you end up having to spend to win all those prizes?
That's such a good question. And I can reveal it was £45. I'm not ashamed of it, because it was great fun. But I still couldn't get over the fact that it was £5 for 3 darts. And I thought, things on the pier have changed since the old days when it was about 50p. But yeah, it was good fun to film that stuff. It was performed as a bit of a skit, but I think it was more a bit of fun than anything else. But it was great fun. I love working with those guys. They're really passionate about getting some good views out there and digging deeper into the psychology of the sport and what's coming up and what's possible. And working with Chris Hammer and the team, including Dom Newton at Sporting Life over the last 3.5 years, it's been great, because it's given me this passion that I didn't know I had, which was to write about the sport that I care about and to talk about some of the subjects that I feel should be spoken about. And only 1 or 2 times have I had people come back to me and say, why did you write this about me? And obviously everybody knows about the Gary Anderson thing from earlier this season. But I've had a couple of others where they said, what you said there was inaccurate, that kind of thing. And that just comes with being a journalist. But I really do love writing about stuff. And I'd like to keep some sort of journalistic integrity by not betraying confidences or saying stuff that I've just heard on the grapevine. I like to keep it factual and true and concise. And I hope I'm able to do that, because I really love to do it.
Yeah, it's always an interesting read, and shout out to the guys at Sporting Life as well. Do go and check them out if you don't already. And I should mention as well, earlier this year, that you made me very jealous when you commentated alongside the GOAT co-Stompe during the World Seniors at the Circus Tavern. I was there for the first 2 days. The only reason was to see Co play live. You had a picture with him, then you went one better and commentated with him. So what was it like to share the booth with the greatest of all time?
Do you know what, Alex? I think there are moments when you do what you do. You look at your monitor, you've got your microphone to your lips, you've got your earphones on, and you have to take a moment and you have to look next to you and realize where you are and who you're with. I've had moments like that with Jim Proudfoot, who is my commentating god, and probably always will be. He is so incredible. He's gone on to much bigger things since we first commentated with each other in 2012. But I still look at the people that I work with now in that way. People like Ian Danter at TalkSport, Mark Wilson, Chris Mason, Dan Dawson, who I revere because he's just insanely intelligent. But to look to my right when I was at the Circus Tavern and be speaking with Stompe, who I got to know really well as a player, I actually went back maybe 20, 22 years thinking, I used to watch you on the telly. And now I'm commentating with you, telling you how to do this. And it felt very strange. But it reminded me of that young boy that wanted to be involved in this sport so badly. And I felt incredibly lucky to have that opportunity. So everybody at the seniors, the two Jasons who put me in that seat, and Chris Murphy, who was my wingman that week, what a moment to commentate with Co. It was brilliant, and he really was an excellent Co-commentator. I really enjoyed it.
Well, hopefully you'll get to commentate with the true GOAT, Mark Walsh, at some point in the near future. But lastly, whenever we have you on the show, we always like to ask you for a prediction. We're not talking just before a major event. It's almost 2 months until the next one. But we're going to mix it up. Chris Dobie and Andrew Gilding have both managed to win their first majors in the PDC this year. Bo Greaves as well, I guess, in the PDC. Will we see another first-time major winner in the PDC this season? And if you're going to say yes, can you tell us who it'll be?
I wouldn't be surprised. I did make a prediction at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, that Luke Humphries would break through. I mean, he's sixth in the world and has been to fifth without winning a major championship. I mean, that is frightening. But as for someone outside of Luke, I mean, you look down the list now, there's actually not that many that haven't. You know, Cullen's won one. Danny Nopper, Cross has won on another World Series title recently. But I'd like to think that there would be another new name on one of the trophies, one of the bigger ones as well. So if I'm not going for Humphries, I would probably have to go for someone like Ryan Searle. I love his game. And I thought there were signs at Blackpool that maybe he'd figured out just how to manage that big stage. That 105 average that he put in round one, that was a real watershed moment for him. And I really think that's something he can kick on from. So I'm going to say Ryan Searle.
All right, Paul. Well, we'll see if you're correct with that prediction. Best of luck, and thank you for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Love listening to you guys. Keep up the great work.
Thanks to Nick and Paul for joining us. I know we didn't say much this week, but anything else?
Not really, is there? Just echoing what you just said there. Thanks to our guests for joining us. We appreciate them for taking out the time. We were supposed to have Steve Brown, the chairman of the ADC, on the show this week. Unfortunately, he's had to reschedule, but he is happy to still come on. So we'll get Steve on the show for you very soon to talk about the ADC and what they're up to. But aside from that, big thanks to everyone for listening. We appreciate the support. Thanks to our sponsor, Dartwolf. If you want more Dynamite Darts content, head on over to dartwolf.tv. Give Dartwolf a follow on Twitter as well, at Dartwolf180. We'll be back hopefully next week with a more regular show. We'll have guests and we'll be chatting about the World Series and a little bit more chat between ourselves. But until then, as I always say, enjoy the darts.
Yes, indeed, because there's definitely no soccer and or football left to enjoy. Glad your Wi-Fi's back so that next week we can give Rob Cross the appreciation minute, or who knows, maybe it'll be by then minutes that he deserves. There'll be plenty of darts to talk about. So just let us know if there's anything you want us to discuss. Keep your questions coming. We'll try to get to some of those next week, and we'll start looking ahead as Pro Tour and Euro Tour both are in the near future, as are some other things, Challenge Tour as well, that we'll be able to recap. So stay tuned, hang tight for just a little bit longer, because we'll be back in just a few more days.